91.3 in Kumasi. Tonight is the return of the UEFA Champions League. Teams are fighting for their future. Teams are fighting to stay alive in the competition. Teams are hoping that after tonight's first leg, they'll be in a good position to qualify for the next stage of the UEFA Champions League. 4 games will be played. 5:45 is the first one. Stade Brestois. Stade Brestois, aka Stade Brest.
It's simply Brest.
Thank you. So Brest and PSG, 5:45. Juventus and PSV at 8 o'clock. I can tell you that game will be 1-0 or 1-1. Juventus, they don't score goals. Man City versus Real Madrid. A honor. That is where the action is. Excitement all over. And Sporting Club taking on Borussia Dortmund. Sporting Club taking on Borussia Dortmund. I heard from a Portuguese journalist that the Sporting Club, they hate it when people call them Sporting Lisbon.
Yeah.
So they like to be called Sporting Club.
CP.
Sporting CP. Very good. Yeah. You know the business inside.
Abaneta, Brest. After they sold Brazil, I was expecting that they will be exposed at the back.
Yes, they'll do it.
But they are doing well.
They've bought bodies. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. Anyway, so tonight, yes, the games are on. 4 games in the UEFA Champions League. Brest versus PSG at 5:45. Juventus versus PSV at 8. Man City versus Real Madrid at 8. And Sporting taking on Dortmund at 8 p.m. Of course, all these games will be front and center on European nights with Kosi Fiaka and the gang. They will be here taking you through all the games. They'll give you a lovely watch along, starting with the closing stages of PSG versus Brest, right? And then at 8, they'll go into Juventus versus PSV, Man City versus Real Madrid, and Sporting taking on Dortmund. Those are very, very, very important games because the winners of these 2 games or these games over 2 legs will get into the last 16 of the Champions League, and then we'll see how that one moves on. So the legs will be played tonight and next Tuesday, and then tomorrow and next Wednesday. Only 1 week difference. No time to waste. We don't want to give you too much time to think, so you go and overthink and do some wrong tactics like some managers. So just 1 week between the 2 legs, and boom, we are off to other things. We'll be getting to speak to our very good friends to provide us some great perspective from all over Europe. This is a sporty breakfast. Do stick and stay. The Champions League is on our menu. We are getting into that in a bit. 054-257-1061. 054-257-1061. Send us a WhatsApp message. Which teams are you predicting, or what are your predictions for tonight? Stade Brest versus PSG, Juventus versus PSV, Man City versus Real Madrid, Sporting versus Dortmund. Send in your predictions. 054-257-1061. We are live on X Spaces. We are live on Facebook. Get to us on X at SportyFM _ and on Facebook at SportyFM. This is the Sporty Breakfast. We are the voice of sport. This is SportyFM.
Cut and dry, baby. Don't sweat it.
Nation.
Now you may kiss your bride. Oh, kiss your bride. Come on, it's a bitch, you know big guy. Cast a net for the fish, you know if he high. Tell me who ain't picking business, he needs a guy. Back then with them things divide. Then we be 4, but then be like 2 divide. Oh, it's sweet your guy. You be like everything then he did for your benefit. We all know you know the pet is from the Genesis, but now the revelation is the guessing for inheritance. A dear woman and no idea tend to peg it. Only awake, hey Kylie Jenner. We'll see a pro, we need to say Benna. Why you want it to say Pantine Rema? You know you look alike, say, who they should have better? You know go fit copy for this occupation. Give them back we be suffocating them. You know be dope how you want mess up with the nation. They throw we bullet, but then we take accommodation. Okay, back to the conversation. Some people they that why we accommodating. Cause me I swear to God, I be we all we know, no label, now you're hitting some probation. Really? Sebe, Kuntum Dede. You try deceive, a man cheat did it. By force, Maradona where they try Pele. The crown where you wear, nobody they relate. And for those who be feeling this song, you know we so we they Charlie, that one I think home. Shout out to Boadu, I'm off the last 2 p.m. It's just another gym song.
Charlie, that's dope. Ray, that's the latest from Dope Nation.
Oh wow, sounds good, man.
It's titled Gym Song.
Yeah.
And it's the latest salvo they fired in the direction of Kwame Eugene.
Wow.
You know, there in Kwame Eugene, they have this beef.
Yeah.
Started from their days at Lynx.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So apparently, so when they left Lynx, Kwame Eugene went to Grant. Kwame Eugene was asked what he made of their departure from Lynx. And then he said, oh, you know, he wishes them well, but he's happy they've left so that now something that will be shared amongst 4 people will now be shared amongst 2 people. So the twins didn't take it lightly at all. And that was the beginning. And then Kwame Eugene, at a point, went to refer to them as Borhe rappers.
Oh.
That was when they dropped the song Borhe and they put Kwame Eugene's look-alike. Nanake Chalabek. Let's give them a little boy.
Give me the boy.
She wants the boy.
That's right.
That's when it's a jam. Charlie, you will play boy. So then, after they dropped boy, and then Kwame Eugene, you know Kwame Eugene's left Links, right?
Yeah.
Then Kwame Eugene says he's about to drop a song, right? And they've been going back and forth. And then he says that Dope Nation, they only make gym songs. He said, no problem. And so Kwame Eugene dropped a song recently and they were even tweeting about it that the mix is bad. He didn't sample well. They'll teach him how to do a proper sample.
Okay,
that's why they sampled Hammer and Bowley. Hammer and Bowley. You may kiss the bride. That's a brilliant sample, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, for those who do not know the Borhe song, this is Dope Nation's Borhe.
Dope Nation.
Show me your boy. What's your boy? Any money boy. So you want the boy? Show me your boy. What's your boy? Any money boy. Come away. Boy. Come away. Boy. Come away.
Dope Nation, oh man, I love this song so much. I remember when it first came out, I'll play it every day, about 5 times a day. But I'll be Dope Nation.
You like boy?
I like boy. I like boy. It was like bear oh hey, it's boy. So I remember back in the day when the first Borhe craze came.
You know,
that's what Borhe beats be. Bang, 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 bang. Now I get the guy that Borhe beat. I don't even know whether it was the song, Charlie. If you go to the parties and the Kojemo, this day they drop the song, Charlie, Bacho, Abu,
about that.
Anyway, the Champions League is on. It's happening tonight. And as we said, teams are fighting for their Champions League futures. And so tonight, the Etihad, the Allianz Arena, the Stade Boadu, I think that I'll get you the name.
Stade Kukurudu.
Not Stade Kukurudu. Hey, be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Stade Kukurudu, I get meaning.
Oh, man, that's how I say.
The Stade Kukurudu.
When I see near the China check
the Stade Ruduru.
You see, I told you.
You know, so the Stade Ruduru.
It sounds like Stade Kukurudu.
And then Sporting Lisbon will be playing, or Sporting Club, they will be playing at home against Borussia Dortmund. So it's time for our Champions League preview. Like we said, it will be extensive. Send in your thoughts, 054-257-1061. 054-257-1061. Which teams are winning tonight? Send in your predictions and let's see. 054-257-1061. It's time for the UEFA happening later tonight. Teams are fighting for their existence in Europe. Who would have thought that the mighty Manchester City and the mightier Real Madrid will be caught up in this dilemma? But it's all down to the new Champions League format. Raymond Yamado is here. Kelvin Owusu is back here. Kelvin, everything cool?
Yeah, good form.
And Michael Asare Boadu has joined us on the line from Kumasi, representing Sporty 91.3 FM. Michael, if you can hear me, good morning. Welcome to the Sporty Breakfast.
Good morning, Nathan.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Guys, the Champions League is back. I don't know why. This playoff excites me. The playoff excites me, right? I don't know why it excites me. I just think that is a very exciting extra layer to the competition. The downside is that PSG, Juventus, Man City, Real Madrid, maybe Sporting to a large extent, some of these teams are likely okay, let me put it this way. Some of these teams could fall at this stage of the competition. Michael, let me start off with you. Now that the group stage is done, you were very happy with the extended stage, the new format. But what do you make of this new layer? Now, all kinds of big teams are facing each other for the right to stay in the competition. Over 2 legs or in the next 2 weeks, one of Man City or Real Madrid will no longer take part in this season's Champions League. Are you disappointed that it had to come to this, or that's what happens when we tweak formats and we introduce new things in European football?
Well, I think for a normal fan, you would be excited with perhaps like this because it eventually set up the thrilling aspect of the game. It makes it more interesting because you want to see the big teams play against each other, irrespective of a stage. But for the two teams, then it would have to do with their performance during the league phase. That will be a contributory factor to where they are at the moment. So clearly, if you can see, Madrid and then Man City did not really perform up to standards. Gone are the days where they could have done this and then still made it out of the group and qualified to the knockout stage. But for this league phase, it means that every single game of the 8 that you will play will need to be played with all the seriousness. It will need to be given all the attention, and then also make sure that you get enough points that will secure your qualification to the knockout stage and not be in this playoff stage. So I think all these things add up to the heightened excitement that we expected from a new format of this nature. So it is basically down to the performance. If City had performed better, they would have been in a better position. We talk of Aston Villa. They are newbies. They returned to the competition and they've made it straight to the knockout phase. If City had performed better, they would have been there. If Madrid had done same, they would have been there. So it's your performance that will determine whether you are able to evade some of these big teams in a playoff situation like this. But I don't think we can put in much justification that the change of format has been unfair to the teams that you mentioned. It is how they played, and it is the results that they've gotten. So clearly, I am okay, and I'm excited as a fan to see games like this. And you see, the more that these big teams face each other and then knock each other out, eventually paves way for us to also have a surprise element. Because I think that it would date as far back to FC Porto in 2004, being the last time that we saw a team not really in the established bracket as of teams that we know them to be regulars in the Champions League. Porto won it, broke that jinx, but since then, it's been much more of the same old faces who have showed up and then won the Champions League. Maybe this year will be that year where we see another surprise element in there. So clearly, I am happy with what I've seen. I'm excited about it.
Nice. Wonderful stuff there. Guys, I guess we will begin our review with at the very top, which is the early game, the 5:45 game, 17:45. It's Stade Brest versus PSG, two teams who know each other very, very well. Yeah. They met very recently, with PSG winning that game by Kelvin 5-2, I think, in the league.
Yes.
This was about 2 weekends ago. 2 weekends ago.
Sure.
And they meet again. Mm-hmm. But we've seen what Brest have done. Look, the fact that they are debutants in this competition, they've managed to get here. I don't know how far they want to dream, Kelvin, but surely PSG will look at this tie and think that I'm sure they will not think of it as a Champions League game. They may think of it as, okay, this is another meeting with Brest, and they start out as very, very hot favorites for this one.
Well, just like the words of the owner, Denis Lesson said, he thinks that they've climbed the top of the Mont Blanc, and then and it's quite. Something surprising. They never even expected they could get to this stage. Most clubs, they do well in the domestic league. Many call it one-off, and then they get into the Champions League, and then they crumble. We've seen how Girona in Spain, the excellent form last season, brilliant, piece of display. But they got into the Champions League, and then combining it together with the domestic competitions, and you saw how, they started dropping. But Brest have consistently been able to win their games and keep up, that momentum. In as much as they may not have that same form or, that level of performance they had last season, at least it's appreciable, because even for the big sides, the well-known teams who have been doing this all over the years, Real Madrid, Manchester City, look at how they are struggling. FC Bayern Munich, look at how they are even struggling to combine these. You look at even Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen, and they've fallen off the drop a little bit when it comes to the consistency of better or good performances that they gave us last season. There's a reason why they've been losing games. They struggle to beat teams. Unlike last season, they'll quickly dispatch you off. The only time we saw them fall off was that final against Atalanta, where they were just totally broken down into pieces. I think this Brest team have all the confidence to go for it. This is going to be the first all-French tie since Lyon and Boadu had it some years ago. And it's going to be one that the French people will love. And I like it that game has been, is a unique time. That is going to be the only early kickoff game. And then the rest of the 3 games would be later. I just want to see the fiery that will come from the Brest side. And fortunately for the two sides, they won all their games this weekend.
Yep.
Brest with a clean sheet, but PSG considered one, but they managed to score, multiple times.
They beat Monaco.
What I am seeing from this encounter, PSG would always have that dominance. They have the confidence. They have, the players who can conjure the magic for them at any point in time. And I think these are players who have not achieved to the very top. Unlike previous seasons where PSG had to, employ the services of players who had achieved and played to the very top. So exiting the Champions League meant 0 for them.
Okay.
If Angel Di Maria has seen everything at Real Madrid and Manchester United, what is PSG going to show him? If Sergio Ramos, Lionel Messi, Neymar, all these players have seen it at top clubs, what is PSG's exit in the Champions League for them? But these are a crop of youngsters who are coming up, even with the experience. Marquinhos, Ousmane Dembele, and the likes. They still have a point to prove, because Marquinhos hasn't been at any A-listed club to win the Champions League or get that far. So that is going to be the motivation. And I think that Brest can only survive this. I always talk about PSG's attack. They've been just devastating. They could be compared to what Barcelona's attack gives them.
Okay.
But PSG have the advantage of, being better defensively this season, all because of how they've prevented themselves from losing games, especially in the Ligue 1. In the Champions League, yes, they dropped points. They were losing a bit. They had to take the final 2 games for them to whip up that energy and win. But judging from the sort of confidence, the sort of consistent victories they've been having in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think they stand a better chance of getting past this, Brest team. I don't see how they can get past them. And, Eric Roy has been, asking questions about his team and how they would be able to stand up to the might of this PSG team. Thankfully, I don't know how fit Neves may be. If he's coming back, glory for them. But if he's not returning into this game, that is where Brest could possibly take advantage of that weakness in, that PSG midfield to see what they could also offer. Because you look at this Brest team and then what they have in that midfield, especially Hugo Magnetti. he carries the team along. And if you don't have Neves to consistently obstruct him from, having his A game, he gets into the shape. Kamara will do all the running, trying to, exert that bit of physicality and then covering the ground. But when Neves is absent, that is where Magneti can just take advantage of it, and then Kamara will also make sure that he exerts that pressure. So I think it's a PSG game to lose. I don't see, even though Brest are playing at home and it's over 2 legs, I still think PSG have that dominant force, that energy to get past this Brest team. I don't see how PSG are going to lose this. I mean, if Neves is coming in, they have Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, Dembele up front, Bradley Bacola,
Dembele I was about to mention, because he's been in very, very good
and the
form.
Ingenuity of the Georgian Kvaratskhelia also adds up to it. So how would Brest be able to stop all these guys who are coming at them with all sorts of play? Because if Fabian Ruiz has players who are going to run into spaces, it's easier for him to just lay down the passes for them. Vitinha and Neves obviously would have that strength in manning the midfield if he returns. And then you look at PSG's right and left backs, Moradin laterals, who gives you lots of worries. It will give your wingers double tax. And that is the reason why they are going to limit the likes of Mama Balde and then Abdallah Sima, because they would have to double up in helping with defensive, in defensive duties. On any day, I think this is PSG's game to lose, and it's a score, 2-1 victory for PSG wouldn't be surprising. It could even be more. A 3-1, it could be more for me, but PSG are not losing this game.
Well, over 2 legs, the Parisians are favorites. Ray, I bet you also pick them quickly as favorites, right?
Well, I think that over 2 legs, yes. Tonight, I doubt if Paris Saint-Germain can win this game. It's going to be a tough task for them. Brest themselves have been very decent in the competition. You look at Eric Roy and his men, he's been able to get the best out of his players. He's been able to find them, get them to a certain level where they believe in themselves, and they believe that, look, we are playing at this stage of the competition where a lot of teams haven't reached here in their debut season. Mm-hmm. So they are the first French club to progress out of the first round on their in their debut season. And so clearly, it's something they are proud of. It's something they're excited about. Paris Saint-Germain comes in as a tough test for them. They are chasing their first win in 30 games. Mm-hmm. Clearly, it's always a difficult game when they play against Paris Saint-Germain. But this is not the French League 1. This is the Champions League. The motivation is different. The hunger is different. The passion is different. Even that Champions League anthem that blasts in the speakers when they get on the pitch tells them this is a different game. They are not playing at their favorite home ground. They are playing in Gingan, somewhere in Gingan. Stade Roudurou. Yes, and so again,
their ground was not up to standard.
Yeah, the fans don't put a lot of pressure on them.
Have you seen places where the law is working?
Yeah,
the football law. If your ground is not up to standard, it's not up to standard.
It's as simple as that. So they have to look for a new home ground. So again, that helps them. And you look at their performances in the Champions League. They've tested the likes of Barcelona in this competition. They only lost to Real Madrid at home. They played 3 games at home. They lost just 1 to Real Madrid. And so they'll be confident going into this game and be hoping that, well, there's really nothing to lose. Whether they make it to the next round or not, Brest can't be bothered. But they would have to put up a fight. And that's why I think that against Paris Saint-Germain tonight, they'll come out all guns blazing. They'll go for broke. They'll throw everything at Paris Saint-Germain, expecting to at least get a decent result. I think Paris Saint-Germain will go through over 2 legs. But tonight, I don't think Paris Saint-Germain can win this game.
I see. Stade Brestois will be pumped by the Champions League and its anthem. Let's switch to the biggest game of the round, and it is happening at the Etihad. It involves Manchester City winners from 2 years ago, against the team that has been described as the owners of the European Cup or the Champions League. Raymond Yamado is still here with me. Calvin Owusu is in studio with me. On the line, I have Michael Asare Boadu, whom you've heard from there. And then I've also been joined by Alex Ashmore, a very good friend from Sporty TV in Spain. And making his SportyFM debut is our friend and brother, George Addo Jr. He's joining us from Manchester. He's with the BBC.
Jorge Mourinho. Jorge Mourinho.
George, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How you guys doing? Raymond, everybody, Alex, Boadu, and everybody. It's good to be home, is it?
Yes, it is. You're home virtually thanks to technology.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, George, let me start off with you and then I take Alex. So you are speaking on the Manchester side of things. I'll take Alex's thoughts on the Real Madrid side. George, what have people been saying, the papers, managers, fans, concerning Manchester City's journey in the Champions League so far? This is not where they would have envisaged at the start of the season, but they are here. They have to play against the mighty Real Madrid for the right to stay in the competition and for the right to get a place in the last 16. So what have people made of Man City's entire Champions League run up until tonight, where they take on Real Madrid in the first leg of that playoff?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Most people here are not confident, going into this particular game. And the Champions League run for Manchester City has not been one that inspires confidence as well. Remember, they only scraped through qualification, via a win against Club Brugge. They won just 3 games. And you look at the sides that they had to play against, and you thought that, oh, well, if it was the old Manchester City, perhaps they would have been able to finish in the top 8 places. That didn't happen, and the performances have been very poor. Sometimes when you have issues in the domestic league, you expect that, okay, when you go to Europe, there'll be a difference in that. But for Manchester City, it hasn't really been that. They've struggled in the Premier League. They struggled in the Champions League. So the confidence is very low. At a point, in the Premier League, some of the fans did say, oh, yeah, this is Manchester City. And when we get a run, something can change. And that narrative went on for a while. And they realized that the run wasn't coming. And there was not a lot changing as well in the Champions League. So the confidence is very, very low, because even Manchester City at their level, when they have played against Real Madrid, has been very difficult for them, even when Real Madrid are not on form in quotes, because Real Madrid is a very difficult side to play in the Champions League. That's there already before the problems that they have had. And you look at the FA Cup game against Leyton Orient, even that game itself was a very tough one for Manchester City. I mean, you think that for Man City and everything, all the problems they had, they were going to quickly, run riot in that game and beat them by so many goals. But you saw the way it went. It was even a struggle for them to get that equalizer before they went on to win. So the confidence is at an all-time low here at Manchester City. The thing I find, though, is that you've got people who fans who kind of are accepting that, okay, well, even if the season doesn't go well, so I'm talking about the fans who are like 50 years, 40 years, 60 years, who have seen the bad times before. They say, well, it used to be something like this. We have enjoyed some wins, so let's give it in there. But the younger ones are those who are, more like very confused and hoping that something will happen, because they have seen Manchester City winning, and nothing is coming. If you followed all the pre-match conferences that Pep Guardiola has given, he's not even sure about the team, and it's not that he's just making it up. The fact is that he's not sure about the team because he doesn't know what kind of team is even going to turn up when he's put together the first 11. The only little hope for them is that, okay, yeah, we got a few players who are coming, but whether it's Kuzanov or Mamouche or any of the players that are coming is very difficult because the team hasn't really gone in there. So I think that for this one, Manchester City going to as underdogs.
I see Man City going into this as underdog. The weight of expectation is on them. Let me bring in Alex. Alex, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good to be here.
Wonderful. So you've heard George speaking on the Manchester City side of things. What about Real Madrid? How are things in Madrid? Over the weekend, they drew 1-1 with Atletico in the derby. Tonight, they go to Manchester to take on Manchester City. Real Madrid have had good times playing at that ground. Are they confident that it will be another good adventure to the northern part of England?
I think they're always confident. Real Madrid, when it comes to the Champions League, this is their bread and butter. They thrive on nights like these. And like you said, we've seen them do so well in recent years against Manchester City, namely last season winning on penalties. And I think it was always a case of once Real Madrid accepted the fact that they weren't going to be in the knockout phase, finishing in the top 8, and they had to go through the playoffs, they were happy and confident to take on anyone. And you talked about Real Madrid being the so-called owners of the trophy in that sense, and they are the kings of European football, and they've won it 15 times for a reason. They are the best at this competition. They thrive on these high-pressure moments, and even without a full-strength squad, they're going into this believing that they can beat anyone, and especially given how inconsistent Manchester City have been over the last couple of months. And we never know what Manchester City is going to turn up. Is it going to be the prime Manchester City that we've seen over the last 9 or 10 years, or is it going to be the one that we saw against Leyton Orient, or the one that we've seen over the last couple of months that hasn't been able to string a run of games together? So I think for Real Madrid, even the youngsters coming into this, you look at Jacobo Ramon, Raul Asensio, who've had experience. Obviously, he played in that game against Liverpool, which they lost, but I think coming into this game, Real Madrid back themselves because of the experience they have in these situations. Carlo Ancelotti is one of the most experienced managers when it comes to these games. I think they back themselves to the hill, and they can see nothing other than the win.
I see. You speak about Real Madrid and their love and obsession with the Champions League or the European Cup. Assuming they don't make it over 2 legs, how do you think they'll rate the season? I mean, they could potentially win La Liga, but assuming they don't go past Manchester City over 2 legs, will they call the season a disaster?
Perhaps not a disaster, but I think a failure, I think, is probably what they would say. Because for Real Madrid, the league is something that they expect to win every single year, no matter how good or Barca or Atletico Madrid are. The Champions League as well, they put all of their might into the Champions League, and that is, they go into the season expecting to win the Champions League as well. To be knocked out before the knockout phases, Real Madrid have never been in this situation where we always see them in the semi-finals, the quarter-finals, the final, and to not have them in the latter stages of the competition for them would be a really bad failure. It would be an extreme failure for Real Madrid, and they know that. And I think the pressure on Carlo Ancelotti tonight is quite big, but he knows how to deal with those situations. He's been in these situations before. He's such an experienced manager. He's such a successful manager when it comes to European football. And I think if they get knocked out tonight and they win the league at the end of the season, they'll be happy, but there'll still be that lingering thought of, we should have done a lot better in the Champions League. And I think the pressure on them tonight is something that they've dealt with before and they know how to deal with. And I think they'll just be too good for Manchester City.
Wow. George, let me come to you and take one final thought on Manchester City, at least for now. Alex talks about the weight of expectation or the tag of favorites being on Real Madrid. Don't you think that somewhere in there should be some hope for Manchester City, knowing that the pressure is on Real Madrid to do well in this leg, close the tie out next week in Spain? Shouldn't City think that there's no pressure on them, so they can try and put something together over 2 legs, George?
Oh, well, City are under pressure already. Once you draw, or once the draw pairs you with with Real Madrid, you're under pressure, And there's one thing that you have to also understand that, and I know people joke with it, but of course, football heritage is football heritage. Now, Real Madrid have proven over and over again that even when they have a bad domestic form, they can come and win the Champions League, and that's where the danger is. So it is Real Madrid's form that maybe Manchester City would have loved to have. Like when we have a bad season in La Liga, we can come and win, the Champions League. And Madrid have done that. They can be so bad in the Premier League. I mean, they can be so bad in La Liga, but can be so good in the Champions League. And that's another thing that goes for them. For Manchester City, where's the hope? Maybe, okay, Madrid are come to the grounds with a makeshift defense. That's where there's a little bit of joy. But even if that's a bit of joy, has the Manchester City attack proving that they are that good in terms of being clinical when they have had opportunities? And how about the Manchester City defense itself and midfield and the way that they're playing? it's very difficult, very, very difficult at this point to see where it's coming. But, well, it's a Champions League. But it's just that when you see the Champions League and that there can be some upsetting results, it doesn't often happen with Real Madrid. And even if Man City managed to get something out of today's game, which I mean maybe a draw or something, the second leg is the bigger issue. That's why when it's 2 legs against Real Madrid and there's a Bernabeu to go to, it's tough, yeah. But it's football. But really at this point, I can't see how Man City go, because look at the way they concede chances. And for when I sit and watch football with my friends, I tell them, like, it's, for me, when I'm watching a game, I'm looking at the number of chances you're conceding rather than the number of goals that you're conceding, because the number of chances is an indicator that when you meet a team that's clinical, you can concede more goals. And you look at Madrid's attack, maybe I don't want to start going into names, but if you look at Madrid's attack at the moment versus Man City's defense, I know Madrid are coming with a makeshift defense, but their attack against Real Madrid's defense versus the Madrid attack versus against the Manchester City defense, well, you think that there are a lot of goals in this one, and Real Madrid will look the strongest, and they'll look the stronger perhaps over the 2 legs. And so, unfortunately, there's not a lot to smile about here at the Etihad. And I'm close to the Etihad, so I'm on the Etihad side of things because I'm 5 minutes away. So, in actual fact, I guess my children will be Man City fans, but those of us on the East are more Manchester City fans, and those on the West, closer to my office, are the Manchester United fans.
I see. Michael, let me bring you in. You've been listening to George and Alex. Over the weekend, I'm sure you watched the Madrid derby. What should concern Real Madrid going into that game, Michael? We've heard that Real Madrid are the favorites, all of that. But certainly, they should be concerned about certain aspects of their team, right? Which area should concern them as they go to Manchester City tonight?
I think foremost would have to be their defense, because you don't go into games of this nature without any of your established centre-backs, and you don't have your captain, Dani Carvajal, available. His deputy, that was Lucas Vazquez, also out injured. It kind of leave them very light in defense, because for games like this, you not just need your starting 11 to be spot on. You also need your bench to also have that depth, so that in case of injury or a player getting a card and being on the lifeline, you can tweak and make some changes in terms of personnel to impact the game positively for you. So I think Madrid are light on defense, and that will be a bigger problem for them. But in general, I think it's how easy teams find playing through the Madrid team. That would actually be a problem, because I look at a Manchester City team and it's the ability to play, possess the ball and move it around the pitch or carry the ball throughout various phases. And Madrid this season have not really had that kind of balance, that kind of shield, especially how they stop the build-up from the opponent. Questions have been raised as to how they do this in the big games and not get the result. It's because the press coming from the attackers have not been so spot on. Mbappe won't give you effective pressing. You won't get the same from Vini Jr. Rodrigo might work hard, but you know that typically he doesn't fit in as a midfield type of a player. So even if he will get involved, it would have to be on the flanks. It leaves just Jude Bellingham, and he has to be someone who works so hard in games like this. But for teams like City, they know how to isolate you in terms of creating overloads and getting the advantage. So I think what City can do and do best in this game is how they are able to keep hold of the ball and then play through the Real Madrid team, which I don't think will have any answers to that. But again, this is Real Madrid, and they know how to seize the moment. You can dominate them for 85 minutes, and just in 5 minutes, they can turn the game around. Then I don't actually look to this first leg. My focus is on the second leg. And if you've monitored the pattern, the trend with which ties between the two teams have gone, it is mostly decided in the second leg encounter. The first leg gives us a hint, sort of, but if there will be a team that will be eliminated and another qualifying, it all boils down to what happens in the second leg.
I see. Interesting perspective there. Alex, let me get back to you finally on potential team that Real Madrid puts out. Over the weekend, I watched them in the derby. They didn't have Rudiger. They had to play Asensio. at centre back. They had to make some changes. Rodrigo was in there. Vinny Jr. had a largely quiet game. And then there's the problem of Jude Bellingham and where he plays. So, Alex, potentially, are we seeing a team similar to what Carlo Ancelotti used over the weekend, or he could make some changes ahead of tonight's game?
I think we'll probably expect to see Fede Valverde play at that right back position. You mentioned there about Lucas Vazquez being injured. We'll probably see Asensio and Tchouaméni starts like we did in the Madrid derby, and then either option of Fran Garcia or Ferland Mendy. And then you look forward to the midfield, Dani Ceballos, who's been playing quite an important role this season. He's been given perhaps more minutes than he expected to receive. I think we'll see Camavinga slowly start to play a more important role in that midfield. And as for the front three, I think we'll see the usual front three, but I think something that we could see, something new for Jude Bellingham, is perhaps him playing in that number 9 position. We've seen him play all over the pitch, whether it be as a 6, 8 or a 10, and he does each position very well, and we know how versatile he is. But I think we could see Jude Bellingham play that little bit further forward, and I think Ancelotti just wants to have perhaps a little bit more presence in that box when it comes forward to pressuring that Manchester City defence. So I think, like you said, a similar lineup to what we saw against Atletico Madrid, but perhaps a new role in there for Jude Bellingham if Ancelotti wants to try things out.
Wow, that would be a sight. I'd love to see Bellingham advance. I'm only concerned because it could leave Real Madrid's midfield a little thin, and that could allow Manchester City to play through them. But, well, I mean, for us neutrals, don't we love that? It gives us more excitement.
It definitely does.
Wonderful stuff. Alex, thank you so much for your time. George, let me wrap up with you. If you had to pick a team for tonight, if you had to pick a team for Pep, which team would you potentially pick?
It won't be very different from what he has got, because he's just got to play what he has, And before I talk about the team, Michael, I mean, made the point about Manchester City having to keep the ball and play the ball. But have you realized lately that it's even the keeping the ball that they have fumbled? There are times when they've tried to pass the ball around. So the confidence is low. They are not able to even do what they are able to do. And I think that Madrid can even play the long ball over them when they pass and push up, because that defense and goalkeeping. So let's see who ends up in. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe Edison, of course. I'm thinking Akanji, Diaz. Well, Vadio, maybe. Kovacic, Foden, De Bruyne, Savinho, Haaland. It's basically what he has in terms of the best side, because now he doesn't even know what the best side is, because everyone has made a mistake and everyone has made a striking and shocking mistake, and it's difficult to explain. So he would just have to go with the key guys that he's got. Really, really not a lot to see what happens here. If Manchester City even win this game by 1-0 or 2-1, I'm not sure Man City fans are happy, because they know that everything is going down to that second leg, and it's going to be on a different scale. So we are waiting for what's possibly a horror show or something okay, man. Normally I remember, and Man City, Real Madrid, this game is one that's been spoken of. Yesterday I was at the academy, and even the academy boys were not talking too much about the game, and I'm like, but you guys, hey, you have a game with Madrid. They're like, oh, no. I'm this. Everybody is kind of scared with what's going to happen here today. And Etihad used to be a fortress,
yes.
But it's
I wanted to
really
ask
normal.
you. I wanted to ask you, what's the atmosphere like on a Champions League night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, under the lights, when Real Madrid come to the Etihad? They've been there, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the back and forth. Last season, you had that crazy penalty shooter, all of that. How is the atmosphere like at the Etihad when you have Real Madrid? Okay, we'll work the line again and bring George back. I don't know whether Michael is still on the line. Okay, Michael is not. Okay, we'll work the line and bring everybody back. Raymond Yamador is in the studio with me. Calvin Owusu is also here. I don't know what Raymond is doing. Raymond, you are conducting business.
No. I'm just making sure investors are covered.
You are the one making sure investors
It is our business to protect our investors' business.
I tell you.
Yes.
But guys, it's a very fascinating tie. Manchester City, Real Madrid, both of them fighting for their Champions League nights. George says that Manchester City don't feel confident at all because they've had a horrible run. Alex says Real Madrid fans are confident because they know that even if it doesn't work in the league, this is the competition they exist to dominate in. This is the competition that was made for Real Madrid. Are we not setting it up for an evening where the football will be carefree or somebody will be a bit more defensive? Ray, do you think that one team will come in and be careful, or we are expecting sheer chaos from everybody?
Well, I don't think that anything can be careful in this particular one, especially because of personnel available for both teams. Mm-hmm. Now, you look at that Real Madrid team, and they themselves have their own injury worries. They themselves have players who may not be ready for this game. So, there's a certain Rudiger who is possibly out.
I don't think he's playing tonight.
Yes.
He's out.
So, there's Militao who is obviously not going to be there. So, if you watch their last game against Atletico Madrid, there was Asensio and Tchouaméni playing in defense. Mm-hmm. There was Vasquez on the right, and then there was Fran Garcia on the left. Clearly, not a defense Carlo Ancelotti is proud of. Okay? So he cannot afford to keep it tight at the back. The only saving grace for him could possibly be Courtois on his day, having an excellent game. Then look at this Man City team. They themselves have issues of their own, especially in defense and in the middle of the park. Fortunately for Madrid, they have quality in the middle of the park. They have players they can rely on in the middle of the park and up front. So there's Mbappe.
It's the Real Madrid midfield that worries me.
No, I think the Real Madrid defense should worry you. Because the defense should worry you. And they have a much decent midfield compared to Manchester City. Because Man City will go into this game hoping Kovacic and Silva playing midfield.
That midfield, yeah.
And Real Madrid can walk through that midfield countless times. Vinicius on his day could wreak havoc to that City makes it defense. So they have the personnel. City have Akanji, Stones, Vardy back, but as to whether they can give you that well-knit unit that you'd be expecting, you may not get. Now, where they are threadbare is that middle of the park, and that's where Real Madrid can walk over them. So I think it's a game where both teams have deficiencies, and both teams will be looking to exploit each other's deficiencies. Who does it better progresses to the next stage. But City, for me, don't look like a team that's full of confidence at the moment. In this Champions League, City have led games by 3 goals and ended up drawing. Yeah. They've scored early goals and ended up losing. So City themselves in the Champions League against teams that are around their level, they've struggled. Coming up against a Real Madrid team that know how to do their job. Against Atletico Madrid, it was one of their biggest tests this season. They were able to survive that test. Can City hold them like the way Atletico did? We all know the Atletico side. We all know the players in there. We all know their coach, the mentality and everything. And we are told Carlo Ancelotti had to make sure the boys knew what they were doing going into that second half. So I think that if you look at both teams are not at the level you'd expect them to be. But if you have to choose the one that's slightly above one, it's definitely Real Madrid.
Okay.
And City, for all the troubles they've had this season, I don't think they're in a good place.
I see. George is back on the line. George Addo Jr. joining us from Manchester. He's with the BBC. George, thank you. The line trip, we had to get you back. I was asking you to take our listeners through the atmosphere. What a Champions League night at the Etihad is like, especially when it is Real Madrid who have come to town to play. We've seen all kinds of exciting encounters, the Benzema-Vinicius show. We've seen that penalty shootout. We've seen all kinds of performance. How is it like when Real Madrid are at the Etihad on the Champions League night?
Better than normal in terms of the Premier League because Manchester City fans are not the loudest. And I'm sure you'd have noticed that Pep Guardiola has complained a number of times. And sitting at the Etihad when I'm watching games, it feels like they come... And this was, the beginning of the season, last season, they come to the Etihad expecting to win, so they cross their legs and watch the boys play. and it's when they have scored a goal or two, then they clap, the goal or two, and they clap. You don't get them consistently going in there. So these times when they are not winning, it's even quieter. It's almost like they're it's just occasionally you hear them saying, "Come on, City, come on, City." They are not that kind that you expect. But normally on the Champions League night, well, it goes up a bit, and there are little things I think in the fan base. Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or, and the Madrid fans feel that Vinicius should have won it. So maybe a little of that will play. There will be some kind of chanting. I think they both will have a go at each other on this Ballon d'Or thing, and maybe that may help the atmosphere a bit. But normally when Madrid comes to town, it's a slight step up, but it's all based on the performance. So the City fans will get on when the team starts playing well. They are not used to, let's stand all 90 minutes and let's sing and let's get them there. No. It's more about how the team is playing before they start getting on. So when it's intense, then you can get them singing and chanting and having a very good atmosphere. But I think that they do a good job in trying. I'm talking about the organizers of the game, in trying to create a good atmosphere. I'm sure there'll be quite a lot of things that will go on in terms of the lights and all of that. But when it comes down to the fans having to do the job, that is where the issue is. You don't get them on for 90 minutes. You get them for portions of the game, and that has been the case here.
Interesting stuff. The other games happening, there's Juventus versus PSV, and then you've got Sporting versus Dortmund. Alex, of these two games, Juventus and PSV and Sporting and Dortmund, which one will you be keeping your eye on, and why?
I mean, as always, I'll have my eyes everywhere. I don't think I have enough eyes to watch the games, especially that other week when we had 18 games on at the same time. I was all over the place watching each one. But I've got a particular interest in, I think, two sides for both of these games. One, can Juve finally produce in the way that Thiago Motta hopes that they can? Because they've been, I think it's fair to say, below expectations of what he would have hoped and what Juventus fans would have hoped. And they're still pushing for a top four spot, but they haven't exactly been dominating. They've been drawing a lot of games, and we've seen them disappoint quite a lot this season in the Champions League. They obviously got that win over Manchester City, but at a point where everyone was beating Manchester City. And looking at their performances this season, I think this is make or break for them. Can they finally prove that they belong at these big stages in Europe under Thiago Motta, and whether this will be the proof will be in the pudding as to whether he is the man to lead them forward. Looking at the other game, obviously life after Ruben Amorim for Sporting Lisbon has been not all suns and roses, I think it's fair to say, and they've been struggling obviously with that draw against Bologna, meaning that they secured themselves a playoff spot. And it's been one where I think if Ruben Amorim was still the manager, you'd probably say at this point, given how badly Dortmund have been doing, you'd say Sporting would have been the favourites. But he's not the manager anymore. Dortmund have got a new manager in as well, and although they've been having a rather disappointing season for their standards, it's a case of who can get out of that rut the quickest, and I think with the new manager bounce, I'm leaning just towards Dortmund on that one. And we know how obviously having the second leg at the Signal Iduna Park will help so much. We saw it last season. They went to the Metropolitano and lost to Atletico Madrid, and then brought it back to Germany and secured the tie to go through. So it's two very interesting ties, and for many reasons we'll see whether each side looking to prove themselves as to whether they really do belong at this level of European football.
Yeah, Michael, same question to you. Apart from the standout tie, Man City, Real Madrid, which other games will you be watching and why?
Well, I think for the Juve PSV game, Alex has spoken about it. I think for Juve, maybe the only thing that is taken for them is the inclusion of Kolomwani to their setup during the winter transfer window. I think he's come on board and then he's add some kind of vitality to the attack. In 3 games, he's contributed 5 goals, proving that he is of a different make if you compare him to Vlahovic, who was then leading the lines for them. So I think offensively, Motta has addressed an issue immediately, and we'll be looking at how that transfers into the UEFA Champions League, because this will actually be the first time that Kolomwani gets to play for them in the competition. And they are meeting PSV at a time where they are not also having a good run. They've won back-to-back Champions League games, it's true. They beat Sevena's Vader 3-2. They beat Liverpool 3-2, but it was a much-changed Liverpool setup. If you look at the form of PSV in the Dutch Eredivisie, then you would have to know that they've not kept a clean sheet in the entirety of this year. They have actually not won their last 2 games as well. So it is not an all rosy a PSV side that is all blitz and all that, but Juve will have to sniff a chance and they will need to grab it, especially at home. And don't forget, these 2 teams met in the Champions League earlier during the league phase, which Juventus won by 3-1. So I wouldn't actually look past Juventus beating PSV here. And for the Sporting CP Borussia Dortmund game, 2 sides have changed managers. Sporting CP, after Ruben Amorim, have decided to settle on Real Burgers. Their initial coaching change did not work to the plan. They decided to bring in someone who had done very well with Victoria Guimaraes. And Real Burgers, since he came on board, you can look at some kind of improvements in there, but you can't compare to how they were playing and the results they were getting under Ruben Amorim. And then for Dortmund, Nuri Sahin did not really get his hands on the job. He was not really in charge, especially in the latter days. The games that he played was so poor. But with Niko Kovac, you get someone who's experienced in terms of playing in this competition, and then he's handled Bayern Munich before. Maybe he'll be able to get these players to get the acts in order and then get a result in this encounter. So for the Sporting CP Borussia Dortmund game, it should be exciting as well. And then 2 strikers you can actually look up to: Victor Gyökeres for Sporting CP, and then Sekou Guirassy. He had a very, very good season last term with Stuttgart. Not really been on the scoring sheet for consistent periods this season. Maybe Niko Kovac could bring him back, and then they will deliver. So I think these games are going to be exciting, although it doesn't carry that feel of a big game or big games.
I see. Well, I mean, for these other clubs, they are all fighting for the same thing, the right to stay in the UEFA Champions League. So for our listeners, if you didn't know, tonight, European football returns. Europe's best clubs are gathering. Brest versus PSG, 5:45. PSV travel to Juventus. That's at 8. The standout game is at the Etihad, where George Addo thinks Manchester City will have a very terrible evening. They host the mighty Real Madrid. We'll see about that. And Sporting Club take on Dortmund. Okay, maybe I should push everybody to give me their predictions. There are 4 games, so let's play a simple game of predict the winner. For those who can be more precise and give us a correct scoreline, that would be good. Michael, let me start off with you. There are 4 games, so maybe you can give me your predictions for the 4, and then I go around the table and take everybody's prediction. Okay. Okay, Michael, looks like you have to unmute yourself. It looks like you have to unmute. I don't know if you can hear me. Michael, can you hear me?
I was saying for the Brest PSG game,
yeah,
Brest have not kept a clean sheet against PSG in their last 19. So I think PSG will get a couple of goals considering the form of Ousmane Dembele. I will not be surprised if it's on the score sheet as well. And for your player, the password name, Kivicha Kvaratskhelia. So
player with the
I think he would also get on the score sheet. I think he will. Yeah. He will get his name on the score sheet. So maybe 3-1 for PSG. I think it is also a game that mostly sees both teams scoring. So I think it's something to look up to. So PSG 3-1 against Brest. Juventus beating PSV by 2-0 or 2-1. Then for the Man City Real Madrid game, how about we do 2-2? Madrid 2, Man City 2. And then for Sporting CP Borussia Dortmund, I think it is also going to be a draw. 1-1 or 2-2.
Okay. Interesting stuff there. I love the Man City 2, Real Madrid 2. George, let me come to you. Your predictions across the 4 games.
Yeah, I think I've been a fan of Brest in the way they've gone about their business.
Who hasn't been a fan of Brest? All of us are fans of Brest.
Actually, they've been good.
Yes,
they've tried. but against PSG, I feel like it's a stretch. I think PSV, Paris Saint-Germain, I'd say Paris Saint-Germain 2, Brest 1 in this one. Juventus, PSV. And I like what Alex said about Juventus. At the start of the season, I was like, this team is saying they're unbeaten, yet they're still somewhere fourth on the table. It's interesting with how they were just drawing games and not winning games, having the impetus. But I think that they will have enough against PSV. Maybe that, I think the 1-0 win there for Juventus. Now, funny enough, I also feel that this Manchester City-Real Madrid game could easily end in a draw or Real Madrid win. So I'm just... I have to be fair to the City, right? So even if Real Madrid want to win the second leg, let's take it at maybe 1-1 or 1-1 or 2-2. Yeah, because I feel like if you look at the two defenses, it feels like there'll be goals. So we may go above the 4-goal barrier, but I'm hoping that it's 2-2. And very much aware that it could be 3-1 as well. And then the last game, Dortmund versus Sporting. Dortmund break hearts. And I'm a very big Dortmund fan. They break a lot of hearts. I won't forget what Dortmund did when they had to win the title by just winning at home against Mainz, and they threw it away to Bayern.
I remember that.
I couldn't believe that. Yeah, you remember, Nathan, because I went all the way to Dortmund to go and celebrate.
and it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
So Dortmund can be a side, but I think because Sporting have at least for the Portuguese league, they're well and truly on the way to win. But Benfica are not giving them that kind of thing. So I think that at home maybe Sporting win by 1-0.
I see. Interesting predictions. Alex, your turn.
The pressure's on. I think I agree with both the other lads here in the case that PSG should get the win here tonight. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win as well. I think Brest, like both of you have said, they've been impressive in the Champions League this season, but I think when it comes to these big nights, we've seen PSG. I think they'll take a lot of confidence in the way that they finished the campaign with those 2 wins, especially the win over Manchester City. So I think they'll be raring to go tonight. So I'm going to go 3-1 to PSG. In the other ties, Juve, I'm struggling to see goals in this one, unfortunately. So I'm going to go 1-1 in Juve and PSV. I think Juve, they've really disappointed me this season in terms of how, obviously, we saw how well Thiago Motta did with Bologna last season, getting them to the Champions League places in Serie A, and he's just not been able to replicate as perhaps as well as Juve would have wanted him to. In terms of Sporting Club de Portugal against Borussia Dortmund, again, I can see another tight affair. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in this one. I think all to play for at the Signal Iduna Park, and I think Dortmund will just nick that tie. And then the big one, of course, I'm going to stick my neck out on this one, and I'm going to say 3-2 to Real Madrid with a late goal from Kylian Mbappe to secure the win for Los Blancos.
I see. Interesting predictions all around. Raymond, do you want to...
No, the Dortmund. I didn't get his prediction.
He said 2-2. Alex, he said what? 2-2 in that game?
In which game? 2-2 against
no.
between Sporting Club de Portugal and Dortmund.
2-2 between Sporting and Dortmund. So that's Alex's prediction. 2-2 is a very feasible scoreline. I think it's a very feasible one, guys. Is it, Kelvin?
Yeah, there'll be goals in there.
There'll be goals in there.
Well, I expect goals, lots of goals, because Dortmund are not going to stay back. And knowing how Niko Kovac would also want to play, I think he's going to open up. But maybe I may tip a Dortmund win instead.
Well, Dortmund away win.
Yeah.
You have 2 players who have 15 goals between them.
Who? Kokeres and
so obviously
Chirasi.
There should be a way to get the goals in there.
My concern is Niko Kovac. He's never been the most explosive and expansive manager. His football has always been very tight and cagey. It was why that marriage with Bayern Munich never worked.
Yeah, but sometimes teams force you to come out and play.
Well,
so he's going into that game with Sporting, and Sporting are going to throw everything at them. If Sporting get a goal, they have to open up and play. Okay. And that's where the game gets pretty interesting.
We'll see about that.
And both teams have firepower up front. So we should see lots of goals in that game.
Well, the match in which I'm not expecting any goals at all is the Juventus and PSV game. I really don't know how Juventus are going to. And guys, George or Alex or Michael, any of you, what is Juventus's problem? Why can they not score goals? Because you run through a lot of their results this season, it's just 1 goal, 2 goals. They haven't scored a lot of goals on a very consistent basis. What is the challenge? Is it a lack of firepower, or is their style of play, or it is Thiago Motta who's restricting them from being expansive and from being adventurous?
Well, I think variety of reasons, and I can mention some. To mean they've had quite too many new players in the setup, especially in the attacking areas. Kenan Yildiz, fine, he was promoted from the youth ranks, but Nico Gonzalez, Tionko Miners, who's expected to contribute offensively as a midfielder, Dusan Vlahovic, you just look at even the addition of Kolomwani. These are players who will need time to understand patterns, training methods. They will need to develop that kind of chemistry amongst them. And these things take time, especially when it is a new coach who is also trying to force and establish order. He wants to play in a certain manner. So all these things take time. Because if you track back, the Juventus team that we saw dominate had some level of consistency among the playing body. The last time they won the league was 2019-2020. And the only surviving member of that 2019-2020 squad under Maurizio Sarri was Danilo. He's been shipped out. So the entire squad base is made up of new players who have not had enough time together. And it is a symptom of the attack malfunctioning. Another one could also be about Dusan Vlahovic and how inconsistent he can be at times. I don't think that he's somebody that you can actually rely on as a big club to get you the goals on a consistent basis. One, his own injury problems. He plays 2 good games for you, and the next moment he has a muscle injury and he needs to sit out some minutes. Or even if he plays, he won't be fully fit to give you his all. So these are a couple of issues I think have contributed to the kind of lack of firepower we are seeing amongst the Juventus team. But I think in Kolomwani, they get someone who is very versatile on all the attacking fronts. He can play on the left, he can play on the right, and can also play through the middle. So he gives them options. And I'm hoping that Nico Gonzalez, for instance, can be very fit and then can be consistent in terms of playing. I believe that if they get a couple of games under their belt, they'll be able to establish that chemistry that I talked about, and things should be okay with them.
Well, we'll see how they fare. They take on PSV Eindhoven, a conquest of Liverpool in their last Champions League game, which was the final group game. It got them here. So 4 games: Brest PSG, Juventus PSV, Man City Real Madrid, and Sporting Dortmund. I guess the eyes of the world will be on the Etihad, where Manchester City will take on Real Madrid. Guys, thank you so much, especially George and Alex. We'll pick up this conversation tomorrow morning, and then we'll get opposing viewpoints to see how things happen at the Etihad. Either Real Madrid gets a good result, or they lose, or they draw, or Manchester City gets a good result.
I can imagine, Alex and all those in Spain are feeling very confident, especially on the Madrid side of things. I know Barcelona supports Manchester City, so we'll see how it goes. It is a surprise. It'll be interesting to be here tomorrow morning.
I see. We'll do that. Guys, thank you so much. And enjoy the day, and all the best, and we'll talk very, very soon.
All right, thanks.
All right.
George Addo. George Addo Jr.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Yes, sir, boss.
Why are you not leaving us with your...
Is Arsenal winning the league, though?
Please, I'm sorry. Don't come and worry me this morning, please. let me be in my peace. Arsenal is not winning any Premier
George,
League.
Augustine Ahimfo sends his best wishes.
Yes, I have to salute my boss, Augustine Ahimfo. He's been a fantastic friend, and as you know, there's one thing that he does that I love a lot. I mean, if he thinks you went wrong somewhere, he'll give you a call and you have a nice chat.
Yes, he will tell you.
He's just a fantastic man. I salute you, my boss.
George, yes, you are speaking George Addo Jr., but for those who are listening on the radio and are not watching us on, social media, they know George by, one trademark. You haven't given us that this morning, please. You just sign off. You just sign off.
Mark was
You just sign off. So
almost
people,
like copyright for Joy FM, wasn't it?
but it became synonymous with you.
It's a kick.
Kenya.
It's back again, isn't it?
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Michael, please hold the line for us. George and Alex will catch you guys tomorrow morning. We'll speak
All right,
again.
sure,
All
then.
right, take care. Have a
Okay,
good
take
day.
care.
So that's George Addo Jr., our friend and brother, used to be in Ghana with Joy FM. He's moved on to the BBC in Manchester. And Alex Ashmore, he's with Sporty TV in Madrid, Spain. Raymond Yamados, I don't know where he's going again, hopping around excitedly.
You saw how he was writing down the score lines. He's going to bet. He's going to bet. That is exactly what he's going to do. The reason why he was consistently asking Alex for the score line of the Dortmund, Sporting Lisbon game. Yes, yeah, something has happened this morning, and that's exactly what he's going to do. But I think. It's his business to take care of his business.
To take care of his business.
Yeah, and he must take care of the business well.
The Champions League is returning tonight.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night there are 4 games. We'll preview tomorrow's games tomorrow. We'll review the things that happened tonight, tomorrow. So listeners, I asked for your prediction. 054-257-1061. 054-257-1061. Send in your predictions. We have to see who are the soothsayers. The people who can see into the future.
the predictions they brought, take me to the bank. Take me to the bank predictions. And the scoreline is wicked. Take me to the bank. That's how we call it.
I see. So if you follow the predictions, Obayeni.
No more.
Anyway, look, for more of these, tune into Sporty Plug at 12:30. Nana will be here with Eustace and the guys, giving you the best odds, the best tips, so you can wager on those games, place those bets, and walk away with a lot in your hand, in your pocket, your Momo wallet, and all of that. The predictions are coming in. We'll go through a lot of them. It's 8:46. This is the Sporty Breakfast. Okay, this is the Sporty Breakfast live on Sporty 106.1 FM. We are in Takrady 102.5, and we are in Kumasi on 91.3.